You know that person who disappears the moment something hurts them? Not physically, they're still right there in the room. But something behind their eyes goes somewhere else entirely. They say, "I'm fine," with a voice that's perfectly flat. They don't cry. They don't yell. They just close. That's not weakness. That's not manipulation. And it's definitely not what most people think it is. Because here's what nobody ever tells you about the men who go quiet when they're hurt. The silence isn't emptiness. It's the opposite. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people go their entire life never realizing. Most people think your silence is a decision, that you choose to shut down, that it's ego, attitude, or emotional immaturity. Dr. Peter Levine, who spent decades researching trauma and the stress response, found that the freeze response is just as hardwired as fight or flight. It's not avoidance. It's your brain pulling an emergency brake because it needs a second to figure out what just happened before it makes any move. And here's the neuroscience piece that should completely change how you see yourself. Because your silence isn't just emotional, it's neurological. There's a region in the brain called Broca's area. It controls your ability to turn thoughts into words. And research has shown that during moments of emotional flooding, it goes quieter. Activity drops. Words become genuinely harder to access. You can feel everything perfectly, but you physically struggle to say it. So when someone says, "Just talk to me," and you can't, that's not attitude or stubbornness. That's biology. You're not choosing silence. Your brain is prioritizing survival over communication. You are not shutting people out. You are holding yourself in. Those are two completely different things. And if that already feels a little too accurate, we haven't even touched the real reason this started. Now here's where it gets personal. Because you weren't born this way, no one is. Kids don't go quiet when they're hurt. They cry. They react. They express everything. So what changed? Psychologist John Bowlby found that the way you handle emotional pain is shaped by how it was received when you were younger. If you expressed pain and got comfort, you learned to open up. If you expressed pain and got dismissed, ignored, or judged, you learned to hold it in. So your silence today, it's not random, it's learned protection. And here's what people completely misunderstand about you. They see stillness and assume nothing is happening. At some point, something taught you that showing pain out loud wasn't safe. Maybe you grew up in a house where emotions were treated like a liability. You felt something, you showed it, and the response was, stop being soft, or silence, or worse. Maybe you opened up to someone you trusted completely, and they laughed at it, minimized it, filed it away, and used it later. Maybe every time you let something show, the room got uncomfortable, and somehow you became the problem for having feelings in the first place. So you did what any intelligent person does when a behavior keeps costing them something. You stopped doing it. But here's the part most people never consider. While everyone else sees a man going cold and quiet, his brain is running at full speed. Research shows people who process emotions inwardly show significantly elevated activity in the regions tied to self-reflection, memory integration, and outcome simulation. What looks like stillness from the outside is one of the most cognitively demanding states a person can be in. What's happening inside that silence sounds something like this. Did I cause this? Have I felt this before? Is this actually about what just happened, or is it something older? What do I want to say? What will happen if I say the wrong thing right now? You're not avoiding the conversation. You're stress testing every version of it before you let a single word out. Because you learned early that saying the wrong thing in the wrong moment can break something permanently. That's not avoidance. That's deep processing. And if you're listening to this, thinking, this is exactly me, then you're the kind of person this channel is built for. Subscribe, because this is the kind of psychology most people never hear explained properly. Now here's something even you might not fully admit. Part of your silence isn't just protecting you, it's protecting others, because you know what happens when pain is fresh. You know how sharp your words can get, so you hold it, not to punish anyone, not to win, but because you actually care too much about the relationship to blow it apart in a moment of raw, unprocessed pain. There's a concept called the window of tolerance, developed by Dan Siegel. It's the state where real communication is possible. Below that window, you're shut down. Above it, you're flooded and reactive. In either state, no real conversation can happen. Nothing lands. Nothing gets heard. You knew this intuitively long before you had a name for it. That's why you wait. Your silence, as uncomfortable as it makes other people, is often the most protective thing you know how to do. But here's the painful irony. The one thing that would actually help you open up is the one thing you almost never get. You don't need to be chased. You don't need someone following you from room to room, demanding you perform your feelings on their schedule. Every time that happens, it confirms exactly what you already quietly believe. That your way of processing isn't valid. That your emotions are only acceptable if they're loud, immediate, and convenient for everyone else. What you actually need is patience without pressure. Someone who can sit in the discomfort of your silence and trust that you'll come back. And the research actually supports this. When people who process internally feel zero obligation to perform their feelings on someone else's timeline, they open up significantly more. Not because they were pushed to, because for the first time it felt safe enough. And here's what that silence eventually produces. Because you don't speak until you've turned it over 100 times, when the words finally come, they mean everything. You don't throw accusations to win arguments. You don't weaponize pain in the heat of the moment. When you say something matters, it actually matters. Every word has been checked for truth before it leaves your mouth. In a world where people say everything instantly and mean maybe half of it, you say less and mean all of it. That's not emotional unavailability. That's emotional integrity. And there's a significant difference between those two things. You go quiet when you're hurt because your nervous system is protecting you. Because you learned that vulnerability had a price. Because your brain processes pain at a depth most people never reach. And because part of you is always quietly trying to protect the people you love, even from yourself. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not cold. You are a man who feels things completely, takes the time to understand them, and refuses to speak until you mean it. The right people in your life will learn to sit in your silence without panic. They'll understand that your stillness isn't distance, it's presence. The kind that takes real strength to hold. And that's not a flaw. That's who you are. And if this felt uncomfortably accurate, like someone just explained something you've never been able to put into words, then this isn't just content. This is something you've been carrying finally making sense. And maybe for the first time, you don't feel so alone in it.